Let's be very, very clear. Democrats who have been lecturing Americans about the threats to democracy, very often the threat is coming from inside the House.
So Ben Shapiro just exposed the massive Democratic hypocrisy on democracy and gerrymandering. And this timing couldn't be better. While Trump's handling Iran expertly as president, Democrats are busy rigging elections at home and pandering to radical elements. We're breaking down their complete contradictions.
Cory Booker, who wants to run for president for some godforsaken reason, no one understands why. He was speaking to a Michigan Democratic women's group over the weekend. And he popped in the crazy eyes. Cory Booker, Mr. Potato Head, went, crazy eyes. And he, will you stand for our democracy? I mean, he stood for 27 hours without going pee-pee. And that means that he's a special dude. So here he was.
Booker's desperation makes perfect sense. Trump's foreign policy wins have Democrats scrambling for any talking point that sticks. They can't attack his Iran strategy, so they're doubling down on manufactured democracy concerns while literally rigging their own elections.
Again, why Cory Booker thinks he's a presidential candidate remains a mystery beyond reckoning. The Michigan Democratic Party convention is pandering to radical Islam. Of course they are.
The irony is staggering. Trump's actually confronting Iran's terror network internationally, while Michigan Democrats literally platform terrorist sympathizers domestically. Who's the real threat to American values here? The evidence speaks for itself.
Here is a clip from the Michigan Democratic Party convention. Good times at the Michigan Democratic Party convention. And here was Abdul El-Sayed, who was criticizing J.D. Vance, suggesting that J.D. Vance is anti-brown kid, which is weird since he has a few of them.
Remember, J.D. Vance is now vice president with biracial children. Calling him anti-brown is beyond absurd. It's projection from people who can't defend their actual policies. This racial grievance playbook is completely played out.
This is the guy that Democrats are going to run for the Senate. He also happens to be a sympathizer with his terror supporters in Dearborn, Michigan. Speaking of which, apparently, he is not the only one in Michigan who has such feelings.
This perfectly illustrates the opening point about threats from inside the House. While Trump and Vance fight actual terrorists abroad, Democrats platform terror sympathizers for Senate seats. The contrast couldn't be clearer.
So Virginia is a fairly purple state. The new Virginia congressional district map would turn a state that is fairly evenly divided in terms of its districting right now into a full-on Democratic state. There would be one giant Republican district and all the rest would be Democratic districts. Right now, Democrats have 55% of the current House seats and they own 52% of the Democratic vote. So that's pretty proportional.
Virginia's data is damning. Democrats would control 91% of seats with just 52% of the vote. That's Soviet-level rigging. Meanwhile, they scream about Republican gerrymandering. The hypocrisy is mathematically provable.
Here is a chart of the popular House vote versus the House seat disparity by state. As you can see, Virginia will be a wild outlier. So Democrats, of course, are pointing to Texas.
Classic Democratic deflection. Point to Texas while engineering far worse manipulation in Virginia. They've perfected this strategy. Accuse Republicans of what they're actually doing, then claim moral authority. It's textbook projection.
Again, all of this is within play. I mean, this is all legal. You're allowed to do it. But
exactly right. Both parties gerrymander, but only Democrats claim to be democracy saviors while doing it. They want all the benefits of political hardball with none of the accountability.
And all of this is well within boundaries with regard to gerrymandering and all the rest. I just can't deal with the hypocrisy of Democrats who are whining about it.
While Trump handles real global threats like Iran, Democrats obsess over imaginary domestic ones they're creating themselves. This gerrymandering scandal proves they're the ones undermining democratic norms.
Again, what's good for the goose is never good for the gander.
The Democrats can certainly win if it's a fair fight. And the question I have...
It wasn't going to be a fair fight in Virginia?
The double standard is their entire playbook. Rules for Republicans, different rules for Democrats. Virginia's redistricting scheme would make Putin proud, yet they lecture everyone else about democracy.
That is not what they are trying to do. Let's be very, very clear.
He's laid out the mathematical proof. Virginia's 91% seat grab, Michigan's terror sympathizers, Booker's desperate theatrics. The evidence is overwhelming that Democrats are democracy's real threat.
James Carville is pretty open about this.
Carville's been the Democratic establishment's truth teller for decades. When even he acknowledges these problems, you know the party's internal contradictions are becoming impossible to ignore.
Senator Tim Kaine, who you may recall from that time he ran for vice president. I know you don't recall it. No one remembers. But he was actually Hillary Clinton's VP candidate. Great quiz questions of history.
The Tim Kaine joke hits perfectly. These people are political has-beens desperately clinging to relevance. Compare their irrelevance to Trump's commanding presence on the world stage today.
Amazing. Amazing.
The amazement is completely justified. When you see the data laid out, the gerrymandering, the terrorist sympathizers, the projection, Democratic hypocrisy becomes undeniable.
Well, you can see why that happened.
Absolutely. The evidence is conclusive. Gerrymandered districts, terrorist sympathizers on ballots, and constant projection about democracy threats. Democrats have become exactly what they claim to oppose.